Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to help provide context in the war in Ukraine. If you aren't familiar with me and you get some value out of this, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do daily updates. This is a 3 big stories segment. Actually, this is 4 big stories tonight, and I try to keep this to a couple of minutes per story at most. And I'm looking at the biggest stories that have the greatest impact in this segment, as opposed to in the morning in a daily brief, I'll just look at the news for the past 24 hours. Okay, here's the first big story. Zelensky advisor issues ominous warning about Great War. And I thought, oh, this is probably some hit piece or puff piece about somebody who has some issues with Zelensky, but it's really not. This was in Newsweek, and it's about Anton Gerashenko, who I think very highly of. Anton Gerashenko I cite quite a bit. He's almost always spot on in my estimation. Anton Gerashenko shared the Zelensky interview on X, which he summarized and wrote, "It looks like a great war is just the beginning. The war will not be limited to the territory of Ukraine. It's already almost obvious that Western countries will join it, and Russia will have to fight on several fronts. Putin is not going to stop," Gerashenko said. He said that U.S. aid for Ukraine was a, quote, matter of reputation, unquote, and noted comments by Taiwan's foreign minister, Joseph Wu, that withdrawal of American support for Kyiv will allow China to portray the U.S. as an unreliable partner. Western countries can still stop the Great War from coming, Gerashenko said. However, there is little time left to change the course of history. Months. And to some degree, he's right. I mean, like, we've extended this 6 months worth of bickering in Washington and not providing the aid necessary, which is what's causing Zelensky to have to back up. And I'll talk about that in the Washington Post piece in just a moment. Donald Tusk is saying the same kind of thing. Macron is saying the same kind of thing. We have to prepare. So here's Tusk talking about this. In an interview, he said, "I don't want to scare anyone, but war is no longer a concept from the past. It is real, and it started over 2 years ago." And a little bit further, "True solidarity with Ukraine, less words, more ammunition," he wrote on a social media earlier this month. So he's got the idea, as does Macron. And I'm not pounding the drums for war. I'm not a warmonger trying to precipitate war. But the way that you avoid war or minimize it is to be prepared for it and meet it head on, rather than let a Putin grow into a Hitler. And that's what you're trying to avoid here. We must prepare for war, and the way that you avoid greater conflict is by being able to withstand it. Peace through strength, as Reagan used to say. Okay, let's go on to the next. Zelensky appoints Danilov to be Ukraine's ambassador to Moldova. Now, just a few days ago, he dismissed Danilov from the post of National Security and Defense Council, like he was the head of that. And he said that this was not a demotion, but he needed him for other things. So either he wasn't telling the truth, which I don't have no indication that he wasn't, or this points to Moldova being very, very important to Ukrainian calculation. And that is actually pretty scary to my mind. So if he's going to be the ambassador to Moldova, something may be afoot with Moldova, but maybe that's not it. But if it is a promotion, this seems to be, and they need his talent somewhere else, and Moldova's it. Wow. Okay. Zelensky also fires Shafir from post of his first assistant. Now, this is a longtime friend who came from Kryvyi, which is Zelensky's hometown, with him. He was one of the producers who was involved in Kvartal 95, which was Zelensky's production company when he was a TV personality and a movie star. So removing this old friend from office is somewhat telling as well. But Zelensky's cleaning house. Zelensky fired 4 advisors, including his commissioner for Ukrainian defenders' rights. Remember, he went through this about a month, 2 months ago with doing this with the military, cleaning house there, and now he's doing this within his administration. Zelensky dismissed Olena Verbiska from the post of advisor. He also dismissed these other 3. Radusky heads the Verkhovna Rada Committee on National Health, Medical Care, and Medical Insurance. Trofimov previously served as the first deputy head of the president's office, and Ustenko was an advisor to the president of Ukraine on economic issues. So he's changing the team up, and that's sometimes a very healthy thing to do, but you don't do that unless you need to, and he feels he needs to, apparently. Now, I talked about this article. This was the Washington Post article yesterday. We're trying to find some way not to retreat. I talked about it in my live stream this morning, so this will be a little bit redundant if you were in there. If you weren't in there and you want to hear the questions that were I just answered every question that I could find, that, like, last question asked, I just went and answered it all the way through. And many of the questions, a lot of this was about American politics and the bearing of American politics on what's going on in Ukraine. So if that's your jam, this is the kind of video for you. Okay. In this, I just want to highlight a couple of things. So, congressional delay in approving $60 billion military aid package has been very costly for Ukraine. He said, if you need 8,000 rounds a day to defend the front line, but you only have, for example, 2,000 rounds, you have to do less. He's not wrong. How? Of course, to go back and to make the front line shorter. If it breaks, the Russians could go to the big cities, and the Russians are going to pound big cities. Kherson, the cost of this 6-month delay is going to be, Kherson is going to be destroyed, and Kharkiv is going to be destroyed. Destroyed like Bakhmut, like where there's not really a lot left. That's going to be the cost of what's happened, in my estimation. Zelensky feels he has no choice but to punch back across the border in the hope of establishing deterrence. An example, Ukraine's drone strikes against Russian oil refineries over the past month. I asked Zelensky if U.S. officials had warned against such attacks on energy facilities inside Russia, as has been rumored in Washington. Remember the Financial Times piece that came out not too long ago? The reaction of the U.S. was not positive on this, he confirmed, but Washington couldn't limit Ukraine's deployment of its own home-built weapons. We used our drones. No one can say you can't. So Washington wasn't encouraging it, but they're doing it because, well, they're doing it because they have to be able to hit back. And I think that's the right course of action for Ukraine at this point. If the trade-off between what Russia has done to their energy supply and what they have done to cripple Russian oil, at least 15% or so, maybe a little bit more, choking off that supply, it's well worth it. They need to proceed with that. Okay, shifting gears again, I talked about Joe Blogs. Yesterday, I did this video about Joe Blogs being hacked after I saw what Jake Bro had posted about it and then confirmed it. This is a follow-up and update video. I have I've emailed back and forth with Joe about this, and so I can confirm that this is his new account, and so we don't know if he'll get it back, his old account, but he started a new one this morning, just after my live stream. Before my live stream, there was 1.8 thousand subscribers, and then it was 1.85 after my live stream. Now he's up to 7.89, which is pretty good. But remember, he had 360,000, something like that, subscribers. So he's going to be rebuilding, and hopefully he'll get his former channel back and maybe even some of the videos, but we don't know. And now I'm rethinking my own security, changed my passwords, thinking about redundancy, that sort of thing. Okay, and this is confirmed both by him personally and you can see it on his Patreon account saying that this is the new channel. So, okay, very last thing here. I saw this and I thought it was pretty funny. We call for an end to the attacks on Russian refineries. Understood. We end Russian refineries as soon as possible. Okay, my friends. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.